think you're on. You're live.
Okay. Wow. Who would have thought? I'm checking on my phone to see when it pops up.
There
But
is a 20-second delay.
okay, well that might explain it. So obviously, if the prelude hasn't already spoiled it, we are live streaming for the first time. I guess it's an attempt to maybe make our recordings a little bit more fluid, maybe less labor intensive for the editing that goes into it, and allows us to chop it up as well for individual clips, but also allows engagement because I think that's one thing that we've commented on personally that we'd like more engagement. We'd like to be able to react to things a little bit better because I think we have good discussions. It's just reaching people, and if we can get some momentum with that, that's great. So we're
Let's
streaming now.
let's be clear on one thing though. We would love to engage with people, but because we're total noobs right now, we actually don't even know where we look to see people. If anyone wants to comment right now, I actually don't even know where we're supposed to look if people
There should be a
would.
little tap function or
Where,
something like
but
that.
where? I'm not even sure where that even pops up on my screen.
I have no idea
I
either.
have no idea. So today, if anyone actually watches this and you were to write something, we're not writing back to you because we don't know where it is. It's not that we don't care, all right?
I'll see if I can. As I said, nothing's popped up in my thing yet, but that could be more of a phone issue. We'll see. Um, yeah, so we're trying this format, and I guess it's going to be a little bit more fluid. It'll be like more of the talk show variants that you've probably seen and heard before. And we've got a list of topics that we're going to discuss today. And I guess it's also a big challenge for us personally, where we don't get to rely on breaks. We don't get to prelude things and set up an expectation. We're just going to go fluid. So this one's probably going to be rough, really, when you think about it. There it is. It's popped up. Oh my god.
It's popped up. You probably see
Yeah.
I just had to just close my personal browser
Yeah.
too that I thought I'd closed, but but that's all right.
No,
No
the
top
chat is
secret
live.
passwords or anything like that, so that's okay.
Yeah. No, the chat's live. The chat's there. So there is a chat. I'm
Okay,
going to just test it real quick.
you're in charge of chat, man. All right, can you manage the chat part? If anyone actually cares about talking to us, you can flag it, man. Put your hand up or
Well,
whatever.
it looks like it looks like you've disabled the chat. That's what it's already come up with. Um,
It's all right. It's all right. We're not chatting to anyone today because we
okay.
gotta
Sure.
we're a pilot. Pilot is just we're just gonna figure out the rest of the stuff besides chatting to people. Wait, I don't know where to go to chat. You want me to Google this?
Yeah, like it just run out. Yeah.
How
It's
do
fine.
I
No one else.
how do I get chat going on YouTube live streaming? Is that it? Can you just tell
Yeah,
me where to
that's
go?
it.
Come on, you give me some
Oh,
troubleshooting and
okay.
I'll go where to go. Settings is a good place to start usually, right?
Settings always a good start. Settings always a good spot.
Uh, I really do not know. We're on. Okay, I don't think it's on settings there. In fact, I think I closed the box when I started this, but I don't know where that box went. So yeah, good luck to us.
I'll have to watch a YouTube video. That's the issue with
I
this
think
one.
you should also be, since you're watching us on live, because we just, what's that word, like narcissistic bastards, right? Isn't that that you should be able to see how many people are actually watching? Is that correct? So we currently have one viewer, which is we're watching ourselves. Is that correct?
And that is me watching us. Yes. Just, padding the stats. It's good.
So where am I going, man? How do I pull out this chat stuff that you're hoping I can pull up somewhere?
I believe you needed to set this function before the stream had happened. So I think you've already missed that window.
Fine, that's it. I told you we're abandoning chatting today. Shall we jump into topic number one?
Yeah, I think we should. I think that's definitely a better segue than us spending another 20 minutes trying to figure this out.
All
So
right, topic number one. I've titled here. You know what? We've actually done some pre-planning now, right? We used to just randomly spring things on each other, like, hey man, like, guess what? We're gonna talk about this week, and then, especially when you got some abstract takes, it would be like, yeah, I'm gonna try and figure what you're trying to say here, but you're trying to paint a Mona Lisa, but I'm just happy to do some finger painting, right? So it's like it's an interesting one. Now we've obviously got a bit of a heads up and planning as well to try and make sure we get 60 minutes of conversation going here, which sort of leads to our first hot topic here, I guess, to do with Giannis and superstars making trade demands. And look, firstly, what a crazy week, hey? I guess we got actually some things to NBA related to talk about. Dame Lillard got traded, and we'll come back to Dame Lillard obviously down the track too on a fantasy perspective. But Dame Lillard got traded, went to what, the Bucks. who would have picked that? 24 hours earlier, you read that he was going to the Raptors, right? And yeah, I don't know, man. What do you think, firstly, of that trade? Is that a good or bad trade?
Um, I think it's going to be a bad trade. I think it's easy. I think it's a knee jerk reaction. I think Portland's come out far better than anyone would have predicted, and yeah, I don't like it for the Bucks at all. I think that core had some issues. I think the Middleton factor as well, being your third best player now, but the fact that he hasn't now had a healthy season since the championship run, and he's only getting older, but his contract's difficult to trade. I don't love it. I don't love it. I think,
Surely,
and you
but
look
I
at
mean,
what Drew got
why are you
individually.
saying you don't like it though? Because I guess if you're thinking about this, they basically trade out Drew Holiday for Lillard, which I guess that's probably the part where you're probably sort of saying it may not be necessarily a good trade because I guess they're upgrading offensively, but probably downgrading defensively. Is that sort of where your stance is here? Because the other pieces that went out, what Grayson Allen went out, probably not the end of the world. They probably have players that they can slide in and fill that level of production to an extent.
I I just think you look at the package that Boston has recently gotten for Drew Holiday individually, and you do kind of wonder what could you have gotten for Drew Holiday individually? What could you have gotten for a couple of those role players individually? Because you're right, the offensive upgrade is clear, but it's the defensive liability aspect. It's the fact that the majority of the core outside of Giannis is over 33, and nothing like old teams don't typically just assemble and then succeed, right? When we think about teams and the average age for a championship, it usually teeters around that 28 to 32 range, but they're usually teams that have been together for a period of time. So Damian Lillard has come over instantly, oh, like they're the favorite, et cetera, et cetera. It's this knee-jerk reaction culture that I think, we're guilty of doing as well. It's a cool 2K trade. Now we're all excited and we're like, oh my God, oh, Dame Lillard and Giannis, everything's going to be clicking. But doesn't change the fact that Middleton's knee is problematic. Brook Lopez, I believe, is 35 or 36 and is the person that you're relying on defensively, which now becomes a bigger expectation because you don't have that wing defender. You've got a brand new coach coming in with a whole brand new core, and you've lost a little bit of depth in your bench because the reality is Grayson Allen was your starter / bench player, irrelevant of how you feel about him.
I
And you've
think,
given up a lot of draft picks that prevent you from being able to make future moves.
yeah, I think, look, I think you're sort of looking at the bigger moves the Bucks made throughout this offseason, yeah, which obviously was extending Milton, giving Brook Lopez money too. I guess at the simplest level, trading Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard, good or bad?
Oh, as in terms of that individually, assuming that we understand that the goal of basketball is to put the ball in the hoop, then yes, Damian Lillard is an
Good.
upgrade over
That's
that.
good.
Drew
Yeah.
Holiday, Drew Holiday had some decent offensive games. He had a couple of games where he would have 38, 40 points in a game. It's not the role that he's supposed to play. I just think that that defensive aspect, those timely plays, the things that don't show up on the box score, that's actually going to have a long-term effect on the Bucks that I don't think that they're aware of, and I think it will become very apparent when Boston and Milwaukee meet in the playoffs again.
I think, look, I guess it's to be seen. And I had picked the Bucks winning the East. I think you said Boston were winning East. I think if I recall correctly, is that who you had picked, or did you have Bucks
I
as well
hope
winning
so.
the East?
I hope so, because that would have aged beautifully by now, right?
But I guess I still imagine that the Bucks can win the East. I had picked the East. I had picked Giannis to win MVP. That one now gets a little bit murky. I guess that's the point, right? You just added a potential 30-point scorer there. Don't get me wrong. I think Giannis can still win MVP, but if I was going to make my picks over again here, I might really reconsider it. I'd put some more thought into it, but that's okay. I guess, and I also had picked obviously Adrian Griffin to win Coach of the Year. I think similar to yourself as well at the Bucks, and I think this would still, I would expect the Bucks should hit that 55 to 60 win territory. Yeah, long as they stay healthy, and that's always the catch.
I just think one thing that we've found recurringly now is that when teams are just assembled like this and superstars come together, the instantaneous success is usually not there. I think the Boston Big Three
Hmm.
actually set a weird expectation for a lot of teams when they pull these kind of moves off, right? We get the big names and instantly we get a championship. That actually doesn't happen
So
like 99% of
But
the time.
But there's some good news here for the Bucks though. They've made this trade now before the preseason. So they
Correct.
have time now in training camp to get some chemistry going. And look, I don't think it's going to sort of crash and burn as sometimes it happens when trades happen at the trade deadline, middle of the season, very limited time, trying to jockey for a spot, in seeding and so on and so forth. But I guess what you're sort of alluding to, and Lillard has what 3 more years I think on his contract, is that maybe the success is not necessarily in year one. Maybe it's next year. Maybe this year they have a great year, they don't go all the way, but perhaps they could go all the way next year after getting a full season under the belt and everything that happens there, and which is more than likely, a realistic scenario, for this group. Which actually sort of leads to this. Actually, isn't the point. I guess we were talking about, Giannis and Dame Lillard, two superstars, which is in part that the Bucks made this trade. If you read all the media articles, was because Giannis didn't want to commit to an extension. Yeah, he was like, I don't want to stay in Milwaukee unless you guys are showing me that you're committed to winning championships and making those sort of moves and things like that, which is why the Bucks swung for the fences to a certain extent here, and pulled this trade off. But the topic here is that I'm trying to raise is that is it even a positive part of the NBA when players make trade demands public? See, I think there's a human aspect here where, of course, people are unhappy at a job, players are unhappy at a team. I'm not saying that you have to be happy, yeah, okay, but it's another thing where in the NBA as a professional athlete, it becomes public, and then it then becomes circulated in all this hearsay and rumors and craziness and things like that. And maybe you're going to go, well, that's part of the show. Yeah, is that part of the entertainment? But I guess from that perspective, because we obviously the NBA has rules in regards to like tampering and so on and so forth, but there is no rule that says I don't want to play here anymore. I want to tell you I'm unhappy. I'm James Harden, unhappy. I refuse to play. I want to go somewhere else. Like, I don't know. Is that good or bad for the league?
I think without commenting on that, they definitely do need a rule to punish players for, I guess, putting out those demands publicly. I know that James Harden got fined for his comments, but that was probably more about the slander given towards an owner and just how severe that was more than the request. Is it good for the league? Yes, it's good for the league because the NBA Finals concluded several months ago, and we are still it's the end of this month that the NBA actually kicks up. This is conversation. This is hype pieces. This keeps us engaged with the product over 12 months. So it's good for the league in the money making aspect, but in terms of competitiveness, in terms of professionalism, no, it's not a good look at all. I think one thing that I think LeBron's really polarizing for a lot of people and also very iconic because you look at his career, his move to Miami was the beginning of the whole free agents putting pressure on it. And then KD was another good example where they needed to set up a precedence where, we need to get something back for players before they leave because we don't want to wait for free agency. And that's what we're kind of experiencing now. We see players demand these trades before free agency because they can get more guaranteed money. That's a byproduct of this agreement, but they can get to the team that they want to get to. I just think you also look at LeBron's career in Cleveland prior to him leaving, and it was collectively kind of known that he was never surrounded with the right pieces. Management wasn't willing to spend money. You look at the OKC core that got broken up over $6 million, I think, total for Harden. Maybe we need to stop fixating on players doing this because they are only doing it in response to the fact that someone else has failed their job, right? GMs are supposed to build a team successfully. I understand that you're locking people in for different timelines. You've got health issues there.
I feel that's a real harsh take, man. A real harsh take. You're pinning a franchise's disappointments. Correct me if I'm wrong here. You're pinning a franchise's disappointments or underachievements, and there's 29 of those effectively every season. Yeah, one team achieves the ultimate goal and 29 do not on a GM.
I mean, I'm willing to say yes. It's you got to think about it. How many teams are competitive year to year? About four to eight, depending on how it works.
But there's reasons. Yeah, you can't just
But stop locking yourself into bad contracts. Stop picking up players for long periods of time or giving them a ridiculous amount of money. I know that you have to spend salary cap rules on that one, but stop putting yourself in situations where you pick the wrong player. Philadelphia with Ben Simmons is a great example of that. They picked the wrong player. They prioritized Ben Simmons for far too long. It never eventuated to anything.
Well, Ben Simmons is an interesting one though. But who would have picked what happened with Ben Simmons? See, that's.
I think when you look, it's always revisionist history. But when you go back and you look at certain telltale signs, like you've probably seen that circulated coaching report from college where it's like, oh, he seems to lack effort when he's behind, or he doesn't seem too motivated to self-improve. Obviously, all these things come out, and everyone's always going to have positives and negatives about their player evaluation. But the collective agreement about Ben Simmons was, why doesn't he shoot? Why isn't he get better at shooting? And then the defensive was, he doesn't need to shoot. Well, funnily enough, he doesn't need to shoot still, and yet his career is borderline on the edge of being over.
He didn't leave Philly because he couldn't shoot. He basically left Philly because the media and the fans and the noise was, you suck so much, Ben Simmons, that, he couldn't handle that. He sat out that season citing mental health. Isn't that it?
He cited a back injury as well, which is what's kept him out of the lineup with Brooklyn. Look, here's the thing. I think you often hear about this. Players are people. I think I've advocated for this in the past. Maybe it's because I have had some recent expenditures in my life that are costly and percentile-wise quite high on my annual salary. I just don't have it. You know what? I will trade places with Ben Simmons right now. I would jump on the Brooklyn bench, and I would have people just trash me online, and then I'd go home,
collect the money,
and just have money and generational wealth, and keep family and friends all well supported, who got me to this point where I can sit on the couch, and then I get to get front row seats to an NBA game. I'm getting paid to watch NBA games. What a gig!
I feel you've really taken a lot of enthusiasm on that. Wishful thinking. But to bring you back to earth right here, I guess at the end of the day, look, I guess what would the league look like if superstars, players, any player really, could not publicly issue trade demands? Yeah, you could have that conversation behind closed doors. You go, I want to meet with my GM. I want to talk to whoever's in front office. Hey, I don't want to be here anymore. But that's a closed door thing. And the only thing that happens at the end from the public side is that, hey, player A got traded for player B, and then you can talk about that as much as you like.
I do think that it needs to be handled a little bit more professionally. There needs to be a process that's followed. Maybe Damian Lillard did follow that process, and then it got leaked to the public. Obviously, we're so hungry for this news that, of course, it's going to be leaked out. You see this all the time. There's no such thing as secrets in the public life. I get it. I think it probably segues into a little bit of my point, and I'm hoping that the timing's correct. But
yeah, it does tie into that. So what? Yeah,
it really feeds into. We've now had a couple of different trades and scenarios and requests that haven't panned out the way that we expected, right? So I'm thinking recently of the Donovan Mitchell to New York trade that didn't eventuate, and then we have Damian Lillard currently requesting out, and it hasn't eventuated. James Harden to Houston didn't eventuate, and James Harden to the Clippers hasn't eventuated, and Drew Holiday to Miami hasn't eventuated. Like, all these rumors that generate that, I think now the general fan or the general analyst is clever enough to actually make the salaries work and, get all the X's and O's sorted. It's the human element that never comes to it. But, you wonder if Damian Lillard could be a Miami Heat player if he hadn't have publicly requested it, right? Because Portland, Miami had the leverage power. Like, that was one of the common rhetorics, that they have the leverage power and they don't need to offer as much because they know that Damian Lillard wants to go there. But on the flip, Portland might look elsewhere because other teams might be like, if we can come in and swoop, we can get it. I think there's rumors, like, over and over again, all they've done is actually generate a better deal for the team that's trading away their star player, right? So Donovan Mitchell gets traded, and we were all naturally assuming that the Knicks were going to give them, a pretty average package, so to speak. And now the Cavs, in return, received Lauri Markkanen, which maybe wasn't part of their slighted thing, but it was the draft picks. That's always the main motivator. But Portland now, post the Drew Holiday trade in addition, they now have 5 draft picks, along with, I guess 2 decent centers that have both been in the finals in the last 2 years. And they get to now, and it's also an addition by subtraction. They have young guards. They don't have an older guard anymore to clog up those minutes. So these rumors I wonder if the rumors, conspiracy Nick's coming out. I wonder if these rumors are actually designed by the team, right? What if Portland never intended to send Damian to Miami and Damian never wanted to go to Miami? Maybe he actually did want to go to the Bucks, but he's got to say it out loud to create this weird bidding war so that Portland can get fed more than they would have via Miami. I don't know. Please tell me I'm not
It's
crazy for thinking that.
it's I love when you go off a tangent, which doesn't really tie in with your general even balanced, logical demeanor in most things you sort of do in life. But then when you talk about NBA conspiracies, you love to go off on the wild side here. Like, Dame likes the warm weather. I don't know. Is Milwaukee warm? I don't know.
No, Milwaukee's cold as
It's
the
cold
sand.
out?
This
Yeah.
doesn't go
Is
around
it that
Milwaukee.
far fetched that a guy goes, "I'd like to go to somewhere warm"? Yeah. I totally understand it myself. Yeah, I move somewhere warm, and that's what it is, isn't it? Um, it's I think at the end of the day, a rumor's a rumor. Isn't that why it's called that? If it wasn't a rumor, then it'd be called what? A fact?
But you,
I don't know.
you're talking about
Like, you know.
We're talking about people who are professionals, people who get paid huge salaries to track the NBA, to be on top of the media, be on top of the gossip. Like there are dedicated roles to this, and they're wrong a lot. And like maybe it's because if they were actually right to the public, people would stop trusting them with information. But I don't understand how this works. Like there is a weird middleman of the NBA. And I'm talking about Shams Charania, I'm talking about Adrian Wojnarowski, and some of the other analysts as well. They have information, and they probably do know the truth. And teams leverage them to then get what they want. There's all this. There's all this gaming,
I think
right? And the rumors are always wrong.
I think people can only know what they know. Isn't that what it is? And you can only know what you know if that's what is given to you. And you're right. I think from a front office perspective, there's a level of chess play, perhaps if you want to call it that, level of strategy on how you leverage some of your situations. And I guess that's the difference where, you would, if it wasn't a public conversation, it would be probably harder to maximize your sort of goals in some of these areas because it's that public forum that then goes, now everyone's talking and all these sort of things are speculating, but then everyone knows as well. It'd be different, I guess, if like Dame Lillard wanted to be traded, keeps it internal. Portland keeps it internal. What are they going to do there? Call 29 teams and inform them, oh, by the way, hey, Dame's available? Like, it's a different story when it goes public. Bang, you don't even have to make that phone call. They're calling you now. You don't have to call them. Yeah, so I think there's that aspect there where it's the nature of the process that you go through. And I think the greater aspect of a trade, and you can imagine from a GM, and I read the article, I don't know if you read it or saw it, about, and I'm always curious actually where they get the information for some of these articles. Clearly, some insider reporter, right, knows some guy in the front office and probably sits down with them for 30 minutes. I don't know, okay? But it was like, here was the thought process for the Portland front office. Yeah, and you would imagine this goes for any trade, especially a superstar trade. Here are my options. Here are the clubs that I've spoken for to. All right, here's what they're offering. Here's what our goals are. How do they align? Which one's the best one? Should I sleep on it? When will I make a decision? Will I get something better next week? What if I wait? Okay, and you can see all these layers of thought process. And ultimately, the last one here probably that leads to your sort of conversation is that why the room is usually wrong is, hold on, what if I change my mind? Yeah, isn't that it? It's like, what if I change my mind? What if I second guess myself? What if something happens? And I think I think we can all relate to that. And that ultimately what happens here at the highest level of sports, especially when you're trading players.
It's not a very fun answer. Doesn't really play along with my theory of the conspiracy. But no, look, you're totally right. It's because it's a business, because they're making transactions, they're making purchases, and I guess selling stock. They do have to evaluate all these things. It was public knowledge that Damian Lillard wanted to go, and the return package, they got 10 pieces back, right? So they got 5 players and they got 5 draft picks. None of them may be as good as Damian Lillard. None of them may come even close to the career that Damian Lillard has. We don't know that yet. That's the beauty of these trades,
The
too.
draft picks will be telling.
Yes, but the draft picks won't tell us anything until 2034 because you can't just draft someone and then instantly cast them after 1 year. It's clearly not going to work. We have seen time and time again, players sometimes take 2, 3, 4 years to really eventuate into the player we expect them to be. We don't know what Portland's going to get. All this projected stuff as well, it cracks me up. People are like, oh, they're not going to be competitive. They're going to be competitive. These teams, the Bucks will be in rebuild mode in 2029. We don't know that. We don't actually know. Like, we look at some
But
franchises, they stay competitive for a long time.
it's a probability game though. So that's what 6 years time. Giannis will be 6 years older. Um, will he still be there in 6 years if they don't win a ring in the next couple of years? There's a level of probability that the Bucks will become an average team at the minimum again in 6 years time. I think it's it's a rare situation where organizations have to sustain success like the Spurs did for like over nearly 20 seasons. Yeah, making for playoffs and really competing at that high level. The windows open and close. You obviously get those better run organizations have a window open for 5 years maybe, then they're closed for 2 or 3 years, and then you reopen it for another 5 years. Yeah, at least it's open more than it's closed. On the opposite end of that is like the Magic where it's closed for 9 out of 10 years, right? That's the thing, right? So it's I think that's I think the something that you're right. It's hard to predict what's the better outcome here or the greater outcome for Portland is here. But I think look, I think they've come out ahead here. They ticked off all their boxes that they wanted, and they still got Brogdon, which is clearly another piece that probably could be flipped for something else, maybe one more first round pick or something along those lines, which they could also